show up on that live because I'm not on stupid that thing. Okay.
We're live
All right. Let's see. I am transferring this now to, oh no, I can't do it that way either. All right. Well, today we have the last day of the People's Wave of Love live on Facebook with Marshall Jack. And it's Monday, May 28th. And here we are.
20. Did we go back a month or what did we do? All right. Well, anyway, whatever month this is, we'll continue on. Oh, pardon me. We came a long way in a few weeks here, or a few days, almost 2 weeks, 10 days. So it was a calling by the holy ones to bring us together like this, and so we fulfilled their call. I'm not sure what to expect out of all of that. I guess I don't expect anything. We were just honoring and abiding by what the holy realms were giving us, and that concentrate on the priorities here on the planet. And so we did that. And so each day we created a intention, and this morning they threw out a word. But before we get into that, let's call them all in, call in all of our ancestors, and get them surrounding us here. Goldie's awake this morning. She wants to say hello. She's ready to go today, and so we'll see what today has to offer. So we'll take 3 deep breaths. Again, we'll get focused in. But the first breath is kind of like just kind of eliminate that outside world for a little bit. Just let it go outdoors. We'll get back to that. So breathe in really, really deep, way down into your core, and just let it go. Let that outside world go. And our second breath is like kind of getting the focus of what today is about, and clearing our minds. And with that third breath is kind of like allow yourself to relax, allow your mind to relax, and just take a break from all of the energies for a few moments anyway. With that being said, we call in all of the ancestors, all of our ancestors, both on our mother and our father's side. We ask permission to speak with them this morning. We call on the creator of all things, the great spirit, all the councils of creation, all the sacred grandmothers and grandfathers of all the universes and galaxies, all the star nations, and call upon the sacred Mother Earth and all of her inhabitants here on the planet, all the kingdoms that work upon her, within her. And we call upon all the ancestors of the world. We ask them to join us here together and bring the energy around us, surround us with that love and that compassion. So again, we ask a blessing for ourselves, for our homes, for our lands, for our families, and all that is the whole. As I mentioned, as I was sitting this morning with the Holy Ones, I was asking them, so where or what do we do from here? Where do we go? And, what's that forward momentum all about? And they came in with a word that kind of opened up a doorway of consideration, I guess. And that word was sustainability. Sustainability. And so I was asking the Holy Ones, and I asked Goldie and all my ancestors, and I said, okay, so sustainability, what are you referring to? What does that really mean? What's a guideline for sustainability? And they showed through the ethers many things that show sustainability in our lives as individuals. And they mention again, as we understand prophecies, the ancient prophecies, that we understand that there were things that came in through the ethers, through the holy realms, many years ago. Some of them are 100 years ago or more. But the prophecies show a trend. It doesn't mean that the prophecy is going to actually culminate or come to pass. All it shows is that if the trend that we are following, these are the probabilities that may happen if we don't change our direction. And for me, it's like, like the human element is that the trend is mainly about production. We have a lot of finances, a lot of money that's floating around on the planet. And with all that money, people utilize their intentions. Okay, what am I going to do with all of this money? And so they create things in their minds. One comes clearly into mind. I was listening on the news the other day in Las Vegas, and they created this huge, massive hotel. I believe it's like 3 hotels in one. Is it 3 hotels or 4 hotels in one? Massive amounts of money for our pleasure, for our entertainment. And, we talked about this, about our compatibility with Mother Earth. It's like, it really hit me hard. Is like, we're creating this massive amount of energy for our entertainment. And it's like, do we really need that? Apparently, some people think we do, but it's not sustainable. We look at Miami Beach, Florida. They produce those high-rise condos down there, and so now they're collapsing. That's not a sustainable energy field. And so in the man-made way, we create things that are sometimes not compatible with the Earth's energy. But that's the trend. That's the trend we're talking about with the sustainability factor. Is that the trend is we're producing more energy out of the Mother Earth's energy for our convenience. And it's as though we're going against natural law. And our elders spoke about that years ago when dams were being established, roads and mines, electricity going across our lands. They knew that it would upset the balance of the Mother Earth. It would shift the energies around here on the planet, not only for us as humans, but for the plants, for the animals, for especially for the waters. When we started creating dams and altering the way water flows upon Mother Earth, water is a cooling agent for the Mother Earth. She developed these rivers and lakes and streams and whatever to cool her surface temperatures down. The other added cooling mechanism was oil. And as we extract more oil because we need it for our vehicles and production and everything else, it's like, do we really know what we're doing as humans? Or do we think we know what we're doing as humans? So I think for me, that's what the word was this morning, is that sustainability factor, is that if we continue the way we are, gathering all of these massive amounts of resources off of the Mother Earth for our convenience, somewhere along the line, something's going to happen where our resources start being really misused or being depleted to the event where it becomes extinct. That's kind of a weird thing to say, because will oil ever become extinct? Who knows? We don't know. We take it for granted that it's always going to be around and we can extract more copper, lead, all the things that we need for our production. So anyway, I want to kind of throw this out. And what does that really mean to you? And so maybe we can start with Linda. What does that sustainability really mean for you in a bigger picture, in a global picture? That's what we're kind of looking for here. So what do you think, Linda?
Wow. Okay. So sustainability on a larger picture, that's like huge. Without human intervention, the earth would just continue to produce and flow in an everlasting life. I mean, it would be paradise, literally. And I think with the human intervention of, into that mix of that production, that rejuvenation that our planet goes through, we've really, thrown in a wrench into the works. What we've done so far, I think, is fixable. I think we can make amends. And I think we can make amends because we were the ones that messed it up. It's kind of like, well, okay, now we've made our mess and now we need to clean it up. And I think we can do that. I think there are quite a few people in groups and individuals who are trying to do that. And I think the whole wave of the 70s, in that group of people who started bringing the pollution of the water to the forefront, the environmentalists, that's when a lot of the environmental groups were established. That group, and that's the group kind of that you and I and folks along in our age group, in our 60s and 70s now, we were the ones that actually started realizing where we were going with all of this, where we were headed, and we started making a difference. I think there's still a long way to go because big business has become such a power. And I think there's a lot that we can do on that, and a lot that is still being done. Probably one of the things that I would say needs to change is people need to stop trusting that the media is talking and spouting whatever is good for you, the individual. Because the media is not our friend. The television commercials are not your friend. The news that's reported is not true or accurate. It's a method for disinformation to be fed to control people. I think the less news and media that you listen to and read, the better off you are, because the information that you need to know will always come to you. It's kind of inevitable. It's all around us, everywhere. It's in the conversations that people talk about. It's in the, the people that you meet in the grocery store, at checkout. There's still lots of information that you can get. And I think the most important information is the information that you're not getting on the media. It's the information that you're getting from inside of yourself that says, this is wrong, or this is the correct action to take. So I'd like to hear what other people think about that. Looking on some of our comments, Wilbur Keith has joined us. He says it begins with us, one person at a time. We can start by picking up pollution, limiting our pollution, recycling, etc. We can begin with us being a participant. Thank you, Keith. Siska says hello from the Netherlands. Pamela is on from Winnipeg, Manitoba. She says sustainability to me on a global scale is coming together as one human family with action to learn from our mistakes and use our voices for the change that needs to happen to protect Mother Earth so we can create a beautiful place of love for all of us and the unborn children yet to come. John says he has something that he would like to say, so I'm going to ask John to unmute himself. And
I have found the technology breakthrough. I have done it. So, yes, I have a lot to say about sustainability. I had the great fortune to be partners with a few other people several years ago, creating off-the-grid homes, sustainable solar, wind power, everything. And so I've had a taste of working in that approach, and also kind of rubbing noses with the mainstream power companies at trade fairs. And so what I want to go to in terms of thinking about sustainability is, we've been talking about the parts. Let's talk about the wholeness. The wholeness is our human consciousness. The parts will come and go and fade, but what we are always left with is our human consciousness. And if we're not looking at how to create our spirit body, our emotional bodies, our consciousness in a more sustainable way, we're missing the picture. Because that's what will get us through, what has gotten people through for thousands of years. And so what I mean by that is, what if you just kind of do a little self-reflection, what are the things that are most sustainable? Emotional harmony, peace, compassion, empathy, caring, kindness toward others. Those are the things, those are the core elements that I think make human life sustainable from generation to generation to generation. And unfortunately, right now, the way that we as a collective race have created this world, we've got a world of a lot of external distractions. We've got what's going on just in technology. We've got crazy driving situations. We've got the internet. All these are distractions. And so when it comes, I'm also an energy healer, so I deal a lot with this with my clients. It takes me sometimes half an hour just to get somebody settled into where they can actually be back into their core, because they've been their systems are buzzed with all this distraction stuff. So how can any human being entertain more subtle, nuanced, deeper, more profound spiritual connective thoughts if their mind is always abuzz with all these distractions? So that's the first thing, is how can we as individuals create a way to make our lives sustainable with the deeper connectivity that we feel like we want, need, or what nature is asking us to do? And it's not like we sometimes feel alone, but we have models. We have models from indigenous cultures like what Marshall has been raised under. And it's been really a great blessing to hear over the time many of the stories that Marshall relates from his lineage. In basically everything that I hear him, if I boil it all down to a kind of general field in a nutshell, it's about how to create an internal sustainable consciousness about how we relate to the world around us. And that's what is going to get us through. Because when we're in that state, then we're more likely to be attentive to, oh, this tree is falling over. Maybe if I go over here and move this brush around or do something here, I can help that tree, as opposed to just letting it fall. So there's just some general things about that. But the other thing is the collective consciousness. So how are we in our daily lives doing our lives in such a way that support people to experience more peace, more kindness, more compassion, more sensitivity, more alertness to the well-being of the whole? We're not just individuals, we're parts of collective we's, our families, our communities, our tribes, our nations, or whatever. So if in the history of the past, if you look at great cultures that declined, they declined primarily because they went from a macroscopic we consciousness down to so tightly focused on me, mine, and mine that they got out of balance. And that's kind of the direction we've been going. So somehow or other, we all have to go back to that. We have, the people from the East, from the world of yogis and meditation that have been doing these models for thousands of years. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of models of how to create the internal spirit more sustainable in relationship with the world. So that's where when I think about sustainability, I think about sustainability of the human consciousness. And I think that all starts there, really.
Wow, thank you very much, John. Yes, a lot of what you're talking about is exactly what I think is needed to be done. And I'm also saying in the comments that this is reflected by what people are saying there. Ellen says, John, you hit the nail on the head. On a personal level, that is what we need to do to be sustainable. Siska is saying we need to repair things instead of throwing them away, recycling, being aware of what we're doing. That education about sustainability to children and adults is another method of making sure that gets done. We need to teach our children. And this kind of goes back to a prior Facebook Live that we did where we talked about taking our children out, making sure that they're aware of, what needs to be done, that can be done on a personal level. It's definitely something that we need to be active in. We need to be active in doing. Marshall?
Yeah, some very powerful comments. This morning, it's our energy fields working together are kind of finalizing this morning. And as I was looking at that, if it's it's become a habit in the last 10 days, for me to wake up early and and get on Facebook and talk about the things that our holy ones are showing and whatever. But this morning it was like, okay, so where do we go from here? You know, what is it that we all need for ourselves to sustain this energy that we have, you know, that we've endured these last 10 days. So I'm looking for some suggestions out there of what do we need to collaborate about in the future. You know, it's like calling on the holy ones, asking for guidance, asking for wisdom and understanding. Okay, so how do we collectively go into the future hand in hand? You know, I'm thinking about that a lot, you know, especially during these last 10 days. And, you know, if in the beginning we talked about collective consciousness, you know, global synchronization, and what kept on reminded me of that compatibility factor of all of us coming together was the numbers. You know, the numbers for me, it's almost like, you know, we're creating an energetic consciousness tribe. we're all syncing together. The holy ones are throwing out intentions, and we're all focusing in on whatever the intentions are. And it's kind of like a synchronistic energy consciousness that we're all being focused in on the intentions that are provided by the holy ones. So is that what we need? You know, I don't know. I'm just throwing this out here for suggestions. You know, we as we came along through the past 10 days, you know, we were blessed by the holy ones to get up and running our own personal 501c3 Native American nonprofit. You know, we're establishing, you know, the bank accounts and all that other stuff. And then the next thing I'm thinking about is maybe creating funding sources so we can move on in a bigger picture where we can collect more numbers within our family. You know, sharing more of this intention to more people and getting more energy, you know, that voice that we talked about in previous live Facebooks. We all have a voice, and when we come together in unification, that voice obviously gets stronger. And when that voice is placed in the crystalline grid, it gets even more powerful. And so that's what I'm looking at in the future, is how do we encourage more people to maybe listen to what we all have to say. It's not just me speaking, it's all of us speaking. You know, we're basically on the same page, but how do we get more people to come into our journeys? I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. So maybe in a round robin here, is there anything that might be sustainable for us to continue on with the dialogue that we've been handed to by the holy ones? I don't know, Linda, maybe you can start us off. What do you see that we can take a break after today, you know, maybe a couple of weeks or whatever, and just kind of let all of this energy absorb into our soul? And so after a couple of weeks, I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, what do we do? What's your suggestions, Linda?
Well, I had been thinking along those lines too, you know, what happens after this? Before I jump into that, we did have some comments from our audience, and John says he feels that where we go from here, I guess, is part of it. He says, for me, I feel it begins with increasing public awareness. And I agree with that as well, John. Sandy agrees with John that the collective conscious is an important key. I pray daily along those lines, that mankind allows the truth of what Mother Earth is telling us to sink into the awareness of our brothers and sisters. I believe that when we get the critical mass of awareness involved, we will see true results. We achieve this by praying together at a specific day and time to assist us in creating the highest good for all life. John is going to expand on this right after I kind of give you an idea of what I'm seeing. And it's kind of what can we do from here on out? I think, personally, it would be great to see postings online, as well as of what you are doing on a daily basis to help make a difference. So, as an example, there's a little area on the street coming off of the highway to my house where somehow there was an accident that had happened, and there's a bunch of auto glass, that had broken and been put into the street, and it's now been swept over to the side in the gutter. And of course, if it rains, all of that glass is going to be flowing into the sewer system, into our oceans and our lakes. So I'm thinking, well, you know what? I have an orange cone. I can go out there and I can just put the orange cone out and I can sweep up that glass and take the glass away. It kind of bothers me that there's nobody out there cleaning up this leftover, accident debris that's hanging out there. So maybe it's something like that, you can see that there's something that needs to be done, and then you can share what it is that you did personally to make that difference. That's kind of what I like to have. Siska's mentioning, well, maybe we can have a theme each week we can focus on. And I think that's a good idea too. John, what do you have?
Sorry, I had to get back over here. I'm painting right now. So actually, your example, Linda, was a really good start. A few years ago, I was out in Ashland, Oregon, and when there was a lot of wildfires around, and we all knew that the first responders, the firefighters, were overtaxed, and they didn't have enough. They're having to bring in firefighters from other states to manage the situation. And I heard from Spirit or the guides, how long do you think you can defer leadership to outside organizations for things that you might yourself have the capacity to address? And so we have a model of years ago, somebody got inspired to create the model of recycling. It started off as grassroots. And eventually, so many people got inspired to participate that now it's not only a public thing, it's a citywide, a state, or nationwide thing. And so, and the same thing happens with environmental awareness. We have to think about what we can take care of. And I want to go back to the idea of beginning with increasing public awareness. And if people are not aware of what's going on, then they don't know that they don't know. And so those who are hopefully a little more conscious about what's going on with the environment, part of that information comes some responsibility to share that on some level. So as we grow in our expansion, we also grow in the responsibility of leadership to do something about it. And how do we do that? We let the people know about it. However, through all the kinds of methods. But I'm thinking about, we all have been talking about the children, and children, if you show them a few things, they can get actually more inspired than us adults can get at times, unfortunately, and they just take the ball and run with it. So I'm thinking that, what we could do is we could launch some committees in look at what's going on in, it starts with the grassroots, starts in your own area. What are the things environmentally that are out of kilter? What are the things that nobody's addressing, or that maybe a few people with some collective sharing could start doing something about? The main thing is just to start the ball rolling. And once you start some momentum rolling, you'd be surprised at what can happen in terms of other people getting inspired. And we've seen it with the kids, you lead by example. And so that's one thing we could do, is start with the kids. A friend of ours, Heidi Little, works a lot with kids, and she has all kinds of programs that she tries to bring into the kids. So there's a lot of models out there that we can look at. The conditions are different in different parts of the planet. So we could just kind of go around and say, well, here's an inventory of what's happening in my area. What could we do? If nothing else, at least we have a more increased awareness about it. And then we start thinking about, well, who are the organizations, who are the institutions that could or should do something about it that aren't, and maybe they just need a little extra manpower. Maybe some volunteer help would be just what is needed. And a few people start volunteering, and then we get a snowball effect. So the main thing is just to look around, be more alert, assume some of that environmental responsibility and leadership, and get it out to the people. Let the people know, hey, we're not stuck here. We can do something. Would we do it? So that's part of the issue. Is it's not that the organizations can't do it, they won't do it. And that's the issue, really, is the mainstream has all the resources. They can't or won't use them to do what's needed to be done. So it falls then on us to take that ball and start running with it somehow. But if we just start some momentum rolling, I think it'll be very beneficial. So we can, over the weeks, we can talk. So what kind of areas? Cleaning up, here's a really big example. Last year, when there were still a lot of wildfires out west, I heard a program on NPR one day about a firefighter in the Flagstaff, Arizona area. And they were facing potential for a huge wildfire out there. And the reality is, whenever those wildfires go through unchecked, it costs millions and millions and millions of dollars to clean up. And so somebody proposed a pre-fire cleanup program and presented it to the city of Flagstaff, and they went for it. They invested a couple of $1 million to have crews go out and clean up brush around the bases of trees that then helped with fires. Are natural in some areas, but when you have a lot of that brush around, it makes it even more intense. So by cleaning that up, that helped, long-term, and saved probably millions of dollars on the back end. So there's just little things like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. Lots of information on things to do. And we have several comments in the Facebook. Sarah suggests that she says she has some great examples of how we spread new behaviors and sustainability. You might like the cool blocks approach, where there's a guidebook and a process. Block leaders get trained and then go around neighborhoods to start a group to work through the actions together. Also, working through the schools is very inspiring. The children really get it and have strong earth lover warrior energy. I love working with families to celebrate the earth's holy days, and I think this is a fun and meaningful way to take focus off destructive consumption focused culture. Pamela is talking about on the last day of the ceremony, she came into the house to read a post from a friend she grew up with who was starting a fundraiser to donate $5 of the proceeds from the sales of car decals that say "Every Child Matters," with the permission to use the artwork of an Indigenous artist from BC. She took this direction from Spirit to start taking orders for this very important cause yesterday in Canada, with the finding of the children on unmarked graves from the residential schools. Now we have 50 people driving around our city with these car decals, which will ripple to many more people, awakening to what we need to focus on in the present moment with a collective consciousness of action and love. So lots of great information, great suggestions. I'm going to turn it back over to Marshall. And
Yeah, it's amazing. Years ago, as we started developing more interest in the environment, there were a lot of grassroots organizations that were inspired by the leaders to develop these environmental communities, as you will. One of the biggest ones that kind of come into the forefront are the Bioneers. The Bioneers is a multifaceted organization that caters to the environment. And then, you know, after the Bioneers and different organizations kind of came together working with the environment, and then we had a huge movement that went on for sustainability, and that was permaculture groups. And the permaculture groups were going back to natural sustainability. It's kind of based on Native American philosophies, and that's a huge organization out there that's still working behind the scenes. We have a lot of organizations. For us, I don't know, Linda, if you remember when we started creating the Mandalas, right? The water wheel Mandalas, and then we had an idea. Well, we could create the Mandalas and offer it as an energetic um, what's the right word? An energetic mandala for your home or for your lands or whatever. It was a great teaching. And so we created the mandala. And then after that, we created T-shirts that showed the mandala and had the big saying up there, "Keep the waters flowing." There a lot of things come to mind when we start organizing ourselves and kind of find that energy that will ripple. It's like the bumper stickers. It's a rippling energy. People, it's eye catching. People look at it and they say, "Well, what is that? What's going on with this?" And it's eye catching. And so other people are are um, are concerned about what's going on the planet, but a lot of them, they just don't know what to do. There's not, and especially in local communities, small little towns and different communities like that. And so the environmental leaders out there is what I'm focusing in on. And I'm hoping maybe as we go along and start establishing our nonprofit, I'm not exactly sure how we're going to do that, but what I would like to see is that if we can create a sponsorship of some kind through our nonprofit, through, first of all, we would have to do our own fundraising to get a bank large enough to fund, different organizations, grassroots organizations and whatever. I know a lot of people struggle with finances to try to get these gatherings together. It takes a lot of time, a lot of personal integrity, but the bottom line with all of this stuff we're talking about are the funds to be able to do that. The funds is what keeps that sustainability going. And so that's what I'm focusing in out as a bigger picture, is like, okay, so we have a lot of time on our hands, obviously, as we go into the future. Nobody is saying what we should do with this time, or what we shouldn't do with this time, or whatever. But if we focus in on, say, the next 6 months, building organizations, building funding sources and whatever, so we can help each other out. There's so many areas of concern, and multitudes of areas of concern. And so my focus is on the global picture. Is like, okay, so where do we need to lend our energy to? What organizations or what communities or whatever? What are they doing? What are they struggling with? Anyway, it's a it's a multifaceted project, if you will, but we can do it. We can do it together. Again, there's no time frame on this. I mean, it's our future, but if we really look at our future and saying, okay, so where is it that we can most benefit our sustainability? Where is it that we can do the most impact on taking care of the earth? You know, my number one priority has always been water. And, you know, water is just one issue, one big issue that we have on the planet, but there's a lot more issues, you know, at hand. So I like that comment. I'm not sure who said it. Siska is like maybe a weekly intention that we can all focus in on, something that we do individually, not only energetically, but physically too. You know, simple things. I don't know what comes to mind. I know here on Hawaii, we have our signs, you know, stop signs and this sign, that kind of sign and whatever. But a lot of them are so old, you know, and many of them you can't even see because there's so much brush covering them up that, you know, it needs some attention. You know, that's just one thought that comes to mind. You know, taking care of our communities, you know, just kind of lending a hand to, you know, our public works department, because a lot of them are all overstressed. And, you know, here potholes are a big issue. Now, we have some potholes that'll suck your car right down into them. So again, what I'm getting at is we have a broad picture of issues that we can contend with. It's kind of like looking at this big old giant elephant, you know, that old saying, you look at the elephant and take one bite at a time. So these are just kind of some options and some suggestions that maybe we can look at in the future of how can we collectively come together with our individual concerns and help each other out. You know, I don't know. I'm like I say, I'm just throwing it out there for conversation. You know, I talk with the holy ones, and the holy ones say it's up to you humans to take care of your mess. You know, nobody else going to do it for you except for us. But we have to start somewhere. You know, we've started, you know, years back, you know, with the grassroots organizations that I talked about. But now, you know, it's almost like a brand new day, never ever been used. And so we look around and we say, okay, so what's messing up this day? You know, what's messing up this day on the Mother Earth? And concentrate on that and say, okay, let's take care of it. You know, simple. You know, it might look like a big, huge, massive element in the beginning, but if we take baby steps and just work towards eliminating some of the bigger problems in our areas, in our homelands, you know, again, there's no time frame on this. The future is our time frame. So I'm just throwing it out there for conversation. So Linda, what do you think about that? What are your suggestions that we do, say, in the next month or so?
Well, I have lots of ideas, and most of them all are coming from the comments that we have in our section here. Ellen was talking, when you were talking about the water mandala, she says she uses that often in ceremonies and thinks they would be good to get these back into circulation and available to also raise funds and awareness. That's a great idea. Thank you, Ellen. Sandy says, what do you think about bringing to the next call a list of organizations that are already doing what we are talking about, but people just don't know about them? And Sandy, I totally agree with you. There are so many out there. She says we could share a list of these resources and add to them as new organizations come forward and get the word out to people that are following us. It may be that people just need suggestions to kickstart their higher calling. And that is very true as well. Ellen also likes the weekly intention of as a collective focus. Sandy does too. There's the Mandela there. Um, the the theme idea that was what Siska brought up, that you were trying to think of that word, Marshall. And I think that's an awesome idea also. For the folks who don't know, the core group of People's Wave of Love meet weekly on Zoom and to discuss, where we're going, what's happening, what we need to do. And I would like to make a suggestion that we bring in these folks who are so very near and dear to us, Sandy and Ellen and Siska and anyone else who might want to join us on those weekly Zoom meetings so that we can gather more momentum, more ideas, and more focus and spread the word better. The more the merrier kind of thinking. And maybe that way, on a weekly basis, we can create now a pathway of where we're going to go into the future, where the People's Wave of Love is going to go in the future. Getting into collaboration with other organizations as well. There's not really anything that limits us in what we can do. So let's be unlimited in our expectations and in our anticipations and in what we can physically do. So that's what I've seen.
Okay, yeah, some great suggestions. But we need to do something, to create a better sustainability for ourselves here on this planet, but for the Mother Earth. The Mother Earth is, our elders. They said, the Mother Earth looks to us to take care of her. Those were some very, very early teachings that the elders shared with us little guys. They say, yeah, the Mother Earth is always looking at you. They're looking at you for help. And that's never stopped. The Mother Earth is always reaching out, asking for help from the human world. That's why we were placed on this planet, is to create that harmony and that balance here on the planet with our gifts and our authority. So yeah, we've opened up a big doorway here to really look at our future. Future, there's no time frame on it. It goes on and on and on and on and on. But again, as we started, developing this wave of love energy, it was all based on creating a better place here on the Mother Earth, not only for the Mother Earth's sake, but for our sake, and especially the unborn. We have a lot of time on our hands out here in the future to really focus in on how do we make this a better place for all unborn children coming into the world, where they have plenty of food, plenty of water, plenty of shelter, plenty of nurturing, plenty of teachers and wisdom carriers and whatever. It's almost like we're developing a brand new existence here as far as human people. But for me, it always started with the children. The children need some really, really true teachers, absolute truth, without all of this mindless entertainment that goes on. And but I see education with the younger generations is what's going to turn things around for us. I know for me, you know, without the teachings of my elders, who knows where I would be? I'd probably be out there doing what everybody else is doing, you know, going for the money and or whatever. I don't know. But for me, it's always been about the Mother Earth and you know, creating an environment where anybody that's born in that environment is welcome with open arms. That's going to be nurtured. That's going to be fed. Going to be taken care of, and have a great life. That's what they did for me. That's what they provided for me when I was born. And so for me, it was really instilled in my heart is that, yeah, that's what you do. That's what you do as humans. That's what you do as a family. That's what you do as a tribe. Is you take care of one another. But you're also taking care of the Mother Earth in the same token. And so everything is equally balanced out. So no one is left behind, especially the Mother Earth. I think we need to put the Mother Earth in the lead. You know, call on the spirit of the Mother Earth and say, okay, Grandma, what is it that you need us to do for you to help you become more sustainable? Oh,
Oh, thank you, Marshall. So we're getting close to being at the end right now. I'm there are Sandy has indicated that if we decide to extend our Zoom calls to others, um, that she would be honored to be part of that as well. I know we could probably, you know, extend that invitation, and many others would join as well. Um, so maybe that's something that we can discuss as a core group, and see what else, you know, we can add to this mix. See what else we can do. John had to leave us, so he's got a project he's been working on, and so I think for the end of today, if there's any other questions that anyone has, please go ahead and post them. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and close this up until the next time, and we'll be posting on Facebook, sending emails, um, and connecting with you again. So, Marshall, would you like to do the closing?
yeah. You know, this Mandela really inspired a lot of people to jump on board with us when we were doing the massive water wheel ceremonies. I kind of discontinued it for a while. It's not that I forgot about it. I just discontinued it because there wasn't enough interest, I guess. You know, because we were providing these with 7 crystals and you know, instructions of how to use it, not only just in the house, just like a mandala sitting in your home, but there were also instructions of how to do this in your lands. And I don't know, my thought is that maybe I should get that up and running again. You know, we offered it as an energy field in your home for all of your waters. And then we produced little stickers that you can place on your glass, and you can place on everything that has water or whatever, place it on your plants. You know, I don't know. You know, I'm just kind of going through my mind of what we can do together here. So, you know, we continue to ask the holy ones, the Mother Earth, all of the sacred grandmothers and grandfathers for guidance. And you know, where do we go with all of this time that we have in the future? You know, what is it that we can all come together energetically and produce a better planet, not only for ourselves, but you know, for the unborn. So I want to thank everybody who's been on board with us the last 10 days. I know there was a lot of interaction, a lot of energy that was going through you at home, collaborating with the crystalline grid, creating a lot of energy this past week. And I still see kind of like the Holy One still smiling at us. It's kind of like, okay, many of you are waking up, but there's many more that needs to be woken up. And so that's our kind of like our mission statement is like we need to get more voices on board, more energy, so that we can create a better harmonious place to live for all living things. So we'll close it up. And again, I want to thank you for participating with me every morning. And the core group, I want to thank them for putting us all together. I know it's been taxing on them because of their own personal endeavors, but they supported me and supported ourselves with the People's Wave of Love. And they're dedicated people. I really admire them. And they came to the call and did whatever it needed to be done to provide this for you. So we thank you for your engagement, for your participation, for your comments, especially for your awareness about the issues at hand. And so I ask a blessing for each one of you. So we call upon the Holy Ones. I ask permission. Call upon the Holy Ones. Call upon all of my ancestors, mother and my father's side. Call on all the grandmothers and the grandfathers again. Ask permission to bring them all in one more time. We call upon the sacred Mother Earth, and we ask her for her nurturing, to teach us more about how to take care of her. And so we welcome all of this energy in, surround us with that energy so that we can become more aware, more compatible, more sustainable with what's needed. Again, I thank all of you holy ones. I ask a blessing for all of your realms, the star nations, all the kingdoms, the elemental kingdoms, fairy kingdoms, water kingdom, fire kingdom, all the kingdoms. We thank you all for helping us, poor little humans out here on this earth, to open our minds to create a better place. So we ask a blessing for each and everyone that's here with us now. Bless their families, bless their homes, bless their lands, bless their hearts. Aho.
Aho. Thank you, Marshall. You are truly a blessing in our lives. So concludes our Facebook Live and the 10-day ceremony. Thank you.
All right, blessings all around.